Hey guys, in this video, I want to give you one of the most profitable paint correction and ceramic coating packages I think that exists out there for any detailer in any version of your business. And I want to get really specific about the tools and products that I'm using here to make this really, really simple. Now, before I get into this today, I wanted to let you guys know on April 4th, I am going to be hosting a live business training via Zoom to talk about how to scale your detailing business to 6 figures through ceramic coatings without hiring employees, without running paid ads, and without overspending on a bunch of stuff you don't need. There's a link in the YouTube description box you can register with. I will leave it there. If you are a detailing entrepreneur, you cannot afford to miss this. Grab the link in the YouTube description box below. Now, I want to start off today talking about one of my favorite concepts that I developed many years ago that I call the correction threshold. And I've talked about this in a live training before, but the correction threshold is essentially the way that I describe the level of paint correction that customers can see and the level of paint correction that customers cannot see. What most detailers don't understand, because most of us are thinking in terms of perfection, is that there is a point at which more correction actually can start to damage our relationship with a customer, because most of the correction that happens in the paint correction process is going to happen in the initial stages of the process. So the analogy that I like to give to emphasize what I'm saying here is, if you are losing weight, the most weight you are going to lose in terms of the quickest that it's going to come off is in the initial stages of exercising. And the reason for that is because there's sort of that top layer excess that comes off, or your body sheds immediately, that's easier to get rid of. And as you get in better and better shape, what do all of us notice? It's actually harder to get bigger muscles. It's harder to lose more weight, right? The more fit you get, the more time you have to spend pursuing that in order to get similar results or any results at all. And the same thing is true in the paint correction world. Now, let's use this black Toyota Land Cruiser as the perfect example of what I'm illustrating here. I'm using a Lake Country microfiber cutting disc. It has about a 1/2 inch blue foam interface. It's one of my favorite pads of all time. And I'm using a polish from Sonax, and this is their cutting polish. Now, why am I using this particular combination and then going to quickly finish with a finishing polish from Sonax and spend basically half the time that I'm spending in the initial stage on the second stage when I'm finishing? Well, it's because that's the only amount of correction that's going to matter to my customer here. So what are the things that you get rid of, quote unquote, when you're in the initial stages of a paint correction process? Well, primarily what I'm trying to correct here is about 80% of the swirl marks. Again, I'm just speaking from the average customer's perspective here. I'm not speaking from the detailer's perspective. Most of what happens when we remove in an initial stage like you're seeing here, those 80% of swirls, is the paint comes back to such a different and vibrant condition that is where we've met the correction threshold. So the number one imperfection that affects our ability to meet the correction threshold are swirls. Inevitably, we will unveil random isolated deep scratches, etchings, bug etchings, water spots, all sorts of things that are only going to come out with a more aggressive, maybe wet sanding process pre-paint correction, but those are not the things that we're worried about. So the microfiber cutting disc and the Sonax sort of Max, I can't remember what it's called, Max cutting polish or something like that, is a really great combination. I will say, what I want to highlight in this video is not so much coupling the microfiber cutting disc with a heavy cutting polish, but rather using a regular polish or a light cutting polish or something like Meguiar's 205 with a microfiber cutting disc like this. Without a doubt, the most profitable way that I perform paint correction and have for years on the average customer's vehicle, with the average customer's perspective, with the average customer's price for a ceramic coating, again, assuming all of those things are true, is when I couple something simple like Meguiar's 205 with a simple microfiber cutting disc from Lake Country like this, because what I'm able to do is essentially combine my two one-step, two-step into a single step, not by using an all-in-one, but essentially by creating my own all-in-one, where I can actually put some pressure down in the initial stages of the cutting. I can ease up on that pressure, slow down my polisher speed, even use a little bit of water as a lubricant to kind of jewel it up or shine it up, and essentially I've created a 2-in-1 step process in a single step. So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and I'm able to accomplish the paint correction, meet the correction threshold, and then move on to the ceramic coating application in a really, really quick way. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the actual ceramic coating application, but let me talk about some things that actually do tend to speed me up. I actually tend to apply pro ceramic coatings. I don't apply all that many retail grade ceramics, even though in this video I am applying a retail grade ceramic from P&S. What I love about pro ceramic coatings, apart from just their general increase in durability over other coatings, is that they do tend to have a much lower flash time. Now, this is something that scares people because, of course, the lower amount of time or the less amount of time it takes to flash on the paint, the quicker you have to pull it off. But the bottom line is that when you're in the groove applying a ceramic coating, if I've got a 20 to 30 second flash time, I can get that coating on the paint really, really quickly, because it doesn't have to sit on the paint for any amount of time before I can just go ahead and pull it off. The second thing that I want to highlight here, as you see me switching towels to my more plush, higher pile second towel in the removal process, is a couple things. Number one, no matter how much ceramic coating I have have or have not pulled off on that initial buffing towel, when I am, let's say, a third of the way around the car, I will always switch out my initial buffing towel. It's something that will always slow you down if you don't do it, because you get all of this excess coating on the towel without really thinking about it, and all of a sudden it takes longer and longer with each removal process to take the coating all the way off. Secondly, if I'm a third of the way around the car, I'm always going to switch to the other side of my applicator. I'm using one from Autofiber right here. I believe it's just got a spongy interface, a microfiber face, and essentially the reason I do that is because you will always naturally get too much coating on one side after a third or halfway through the car if you're on a smaller car, where again, you're putting an excess amount of coating down. It's just too much. It doesn't make sense. The other thing that I don't ever like to risk is if I'm halfway around the car, I've probably been working for, at least let's just say 20 to 30 minutes, right? If not a little bit more than that. And if you've ever taken an applicator that has excess ceramic coating on it and left it for about a half an hour and then gone back to grab it, you can see that it's super hard. It's got these crystallized kind of like glass pieces, it looks like, on the actual applicator, because that's what happens when it sits and is exposed to oxygen. And so my theory, this has never happened to me, but I'm like, I don't want to sit for more than 30 minutes on one side of the applicator just in case there are any crystallized pieces, hardened pieces that have been exposed to the oxygen. I just would rather get a new applicator or switch it all together so that I don't have to drag those sharp edges potentially over the paint in case that's happening. That's just me being super conservative, but it tends to be how I detail. The other thing that I want to highlight about the second towel in the removal process, which is what you see on screen right here, is that I always use that towel to go way over the borders of where I applied the ceramic in the first place. So you can see on this panel, I've got very defined edges of where I'm applying the ceramic coating. It's kind of in the valley of the hood, inside those two body lines on the right or on the left side. When I go to remove it with my first towel, and then specifically with my second towel, I'm going to go way over the body line, and you guys are going to see that because as I remove it, I naturally get a little bit of excess coating around the area I applied the coating to, because, well, number one, you're pushing the coating around, but number two, you're using an initial buffing towel that already has coating on it. So naturally, anything that touches is going to get a little bit of that coating on it, and so you have to be so careful in that second stage of the removal process, because if you aren't, you are going to get a tiny streak of a high spot. It's going to be really easy to see on this black paint, and it's something that is really easily avoidable. Now guys, one last reminder, if you are a detailer who wants to turn this into a real business, or you already have an existing detailing business, but you've not figured out how to scale past 100 grand a year, which is about $8,432 per month, that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about in the live annual training I'm hosting on Zoom. The link to register is in the YouTube description box below. Detailing entrepreneurs, this is for you. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to link up all of these ceramic coating and paint correction tools and products I suggest, even as small as the applicator and the towels, in the YouTube description box below, because I think people can overspend on stuff like that and you really don't need to. So I'm going to hook up what I use and what I think is best. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, a great detailer is always learning. And from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, I will see you guys in the next video.